Hello, everyone, and welcome to our June session of Doctor Integration. Today, we're going to be covering the new TCI Marketplace. I know the announcement said that we might have covered some things in Flogo, but there's enough that I'll put that in a separate session for next month. But this month, we really want to focus on the newly released and upgraded TCI Marketplace. Usual disclaimers. So what do we want to cover today? We want to have a history of the marketplace, kind of see where we are in the context of where we've been, look at the benefits for our different personas, understand how to use the marketplace, both in terms of being a content provider as well as a user, and how that process happens behind the scenes. Then we'll have a quick example. So the original marketplace, when we launched, when we brought TCI together with TIBCO Connect, Develop, and Integrate, there were 67 out of the box Flogo connectors and 103 out of the box Scribe connectors. Addition to that, there were a lot of private Scribe connectors that that people were using. Our partners were using and deploying within their organizations, using the parent-child organization relationship, as well as across other organizations when people had purchased those connectors. So what are some of the gaps? Well, there was a lack of BW connectors as part of the marketplace. And really, there was no easy way for people to contribute. And this include TIBCO staff, our partners, or the general, or people in general, right? So we have a new improved marketplace. We have multiple asset types. We have a total of 316 connectors between Scribe and Flogo, including the private connectors. BW has some out-of-the-box connectors. Now, I think this is really one of the big benefits of the new TCI marketplace is the ability to deploy and put apps into the marketplace, right? So now we have applications for both Scribe and Flogo, also known as Connect and Develop. And then there's some accelerators too, which are part of the TCI TIBCO Labs initiative. So what can we do now, right? So now it's much easier to search, discover, and consume, review, and publish. And the resources now both include connectors and extensions and apps. So extensions within Flogo also include additional functionality. For TCI Connect, Scribe, the connectors themselves are usually connecting to different endpoints, but within Flogo, you have both connectors and functional improvements as part of extensions. So an extension can be either a connector or it can be other type of new functionality in the product. So who now benefits? Well, the builders, the people who contribute, the partners, and the users now certainly have benefit from this. And what are the goals? The goals are going to be ease of use and making users successful. So for the partner, why do they want to use this marketplace? Well, they can showcase their innovations. They can showcase the connectors that they've created and the apps that they've created. And traditionally, our partners have, build up libraries of their own apps. They often will develop their own connectors. Sometimes they will charge for those. Sometimes they'll charge for those, and sometimes they'll make those available, as a general connector, right? But I think one of the key things here is, this will drive demand for services. We have implementation partners that we work with very closely, and they do both OEM as well as integration implementations. And by putting their apps in the marketplace, and this is really sort of like the general concept is, they put out there, they demonstrate their level of expertise, and then that's going to drive the demand for services. And there's also paid models for connector and apps. Previously, we only had paid connector model, but now we have paid apps and connector models. And in fact, one of our big partners now has put out a sort of like free version of an app, which is useful for tracking and storing execution history within TCI Connect. But also there's an add-on to that, which is a paid version. So you really get that like free, that free piece, and then a adding on new functionality and to be able to charge for that. And additionally, these are also consultants, so they also can help you deploy these apps and demonstrate their expertise so you can use them. Now, for users, right, having a central location to find quickly and easily is really important. But I think also it's to accelerate development by using some examples. So previously, we used to have what were called starter packs, and the starter packs were distributed just as JSON files and some supporting documentation. So the user had to go, they had to install the JSON. Now the way that the apps are deployed is simple one click. As soon as you request that app and it's deployed to your organization, automatically it's there. So you don't have to go through the process of downloading and uploading and all that. Again, it's a small thing, but it does, I think, make it a lot easier for the users to be able to get these apps and these connectors. But also you can learn from others, right? So users can share, they can upload, they can download, and they can see what other people are doing, and that's going to actually help them become more proficient at the product. And also provide feedback. We have we have the like button on there, and you can now use that to provide feedback. Now for TIBCO, this is great for TIBCO too, right? Because now we can augment our documentation. Previously, our documentation is great and has a lot of examples and a lot of screenshots, but really now our documentation, I think especially for the connector extensions of the TCI Connect. So if you understand the different products between Flogo, especially in TCI Connect, we know that TCI Connect can sometimes use the connectors to extend the functionality. So Flogo has what are called extensions, some of which are connectors, and then Scribe has connectors, some of which in a way are product extensions. So I think understanding the difference between those two helps to understand, understand the products, but also the nuances of the documentation and deployment and empowering and enabling users for these different methodologies, right? So especially for TCI Connect, there's a lot of examples with our connector extensions, our files connector, variables, HTTP, right? All that great stuff. And there's previous webinars and lots of good documentation you can use to understand that. And then with Flogo, there's a lot of other extensions that we can get you that were previously on GitHub and things like that. The ability to run asynchronous jobs. Now that stuff can be deployed in the marketplace. And for apps, for Connect, it's really the actual examples you can deploy and walk through those. It's also a good way to showcase demos for some of our other things, not just for the things that are in documentation, but also things for the community, training, all those other things, right? And I think this is great. As a TIBCO employee, employees, we're always making cool things, right? Like we talk to the customers, we understand your problems, and then we come up with proof of concepts or solutions for things that you're actually working on. Now we have a way to deploy these in a public-facing way that you can access and you can get the benefit of all the stuff that we've done. And again, putting that in a single place. So what are some of the benefits, right? So certainly discoverability is a big one, right? So again, we've created a lot of assets internally. Our partners have created a lot of assets, and putting this all into one centralized place that's easy to deploy is, it's really a game changer, I think, for us. And again, now you can find not only the free ones, but also the ones for paid connectors and apps. Previously, it was a hodgepodge of our partners would have, things on their websites and through their private channels and things like that. Now there's one place where everyone can go together, right? And for the end user, this is really great because it's going to help them to innovate using these products. As you can see the examples now, not only from an examples point of view, but from leveraging the functionality. And again, I think that's where we look at the two sides of this. There's the app side, which is the actual applications, and there's a lot, and that's the actual integrations. And then there's the extensions / connector side of it, and that's where you're adding new connectivity and you're actually leveraging and increasing the core functionality of the product itself. And I think when you put those two things together, all right, that's where they continue to build off each other, right? So we have new connectivity, we have new extensions, and then now we have new apps which use that. And then those apps are going to drive, oh, here's something I want to do now in my, in this particular complex logic that I have, that's going to drive innovation for other apps as well as other extensions, right? This also really it supports our partners too, because a big part of what makes us great is that we have this partner network. We can tap into people who are doing integrations, who are experts in our products. This is another way to support them, get them in front of our customers, get their expertise out there, right? And of course, on the community piece, we're going to learn from each other, and we're going to share. We're going to learn from each other, but also within organizations now, one of the deployment models for the new marketplace is a private sort of like org-to-org deployment model. So you don't necessarily have to go through the public-facing marketplace. If you have an app that you're working on, you can actually deploy this to another organization, someone you're working with. Maybe it's potentially one of your customers, right? If you're a partner or a service provider, and you can deploy apps directly there. And also internally, right? TIBCO now, I could say, hey, I'm going to deploy this app to your organization. And I work on it with you, maybe come up with proofs of concept, then I deploy it to your organization. Now you can use it and work from there, right? So if we're doing some type of consulting services right now, instead of having, all this, you need permissions for one organization and access. Now from a security point of view, that's actually a benefit here, because now I can develop the app within my organization, within my security model, using all my connections. Then I can say, hey, I'm ready. I can deploy that to your organization. You can pick that up as a user, working with one of our consultants, working with our customer success architects, right? And then you can now use it there. All right. So this is another great way, I think, which is going to make it easier for us to get our expertise out there, both from our partners and internally. And that's really what it's about, right? Is like the marketplace is one single place now where we're all going to come together. So think about the different personas, right? So we have the producer and the consumer and the approver, right? So the producer is going to be the content creator. They're going to create and publish to the marketplace. And there are three models that you can use. You can make it completely public. And in this case, we'll see what that looks like up in the marketplace. You can make it request only, and the ones that are paid are also request only. And this request model is a way to make it a lot easier to deploy and get paid for your apps and your extensions that you're creating, right? Previously, there wasn't, previously it was sort of a hodgepodge of doing it. Sometimes you'd pay the user, there'd be a key, right? Everyone had their own way of doing it. Now you have a dashboard, you're in control of how you're going to deploy as a producer, of how you're going to deploy your apps. And then, when someone requests that, then after you get paid, then you will deploy to their organization. And then there's a third method, which is private. This is really like the org to org, where I can just, like, without going through the marketplace and without even involving TIBCO, I can deploy either an extension or an app from one organization to another. Of course, now I'll be able to manage the listings and the access to these. I can upgrade the apps and extensions. And the key thing there is, the way you deploy the app to the marketplace is you create an app, then you deploy it, then you submit it for approval, and then the app will get put to the marketplace. That app is now linked to that particular marketplace entry. So if you make changes to that app, and then you can redeploy that to the marketplace. All right. There are some subtleties in terms of how the end user handles that, and of course, the producer also needs to handle documentation. So consumers, right? They have they're on the receiving end of all this. They can use the public items to the marketplace very easily. I go on there, I just connect, I just hit install, and you'll see that for the connectors, the paid and the ones that are provided by TIBCO and the ones that are provided by partners, now they're all in one central location, right? Previously, again, to get those private ones, it was, you have to call us, there were support tickets and things like that. Now it's all in a central location. And from the user's point of view, there's just one big palette of connections that they can use. So they can either get the private ones very easily, or if the one is paid or request only, instead of deploying it and getting it, they'll just hit the request, and it'll get put through the approval process for the producer. right? Otherwise, consumers can just receive these org-to-org private deployments. If I have my org and I know you're going to send me something, it'll just show up there and I'll be able to get it and deploy it, right? I can also, again, endorse it via the likes. Now, the approver, this is from within TIBCO. People can either approve or reject the submissions. Now, the key thing here, though, is that understanding the different architectures is going to help you understand why the TCI Connect scribe connectors still use the existing certification process. So we understand Flogo it's written in Golang, and each app is deployed in its own container. So they're separate from all the other users in our TCI and TIBCO Cloud Integration. However, with Scribe, there is a there's underneath the hood, there is some shared resources in terms of how the connectors and the agents are deployed on various machines. So because of that, any connector that you write, and this is really the .NET code that you're writing in order to implement a connector within Scribe, when you write that .NET code, that has to go through our approval process, because we just can't throw that up in our cloud, because you could do things which are bad, right? You could try to write to local file systems. You could burn through a lot of resources and impact our other users. You might, so the variety of reasons, we still have to go through the approval process. But once you're in that approval process, then that connector will still show up in the marketplace. Now, for Flogo, you can make all the extensions you want and put them out there because because you're deploying it to a private instance, and it's separate enough that it's not going to hurt anything else on those systems. All right. So how does it work? Pretty straightforward. The provider is going to submit via their org. They're going to, from a Flogo extension or from Flogo or Scribe app, they're going to submit that, right? And then TIBCO is going to approve it, and the consumer is going to get the listing via one of these methods. So there are a couple models that we have here, right? So there's the open source model, and this is basically someone is going to just put this out in the community, and everyone's going to be able to access this, right? Now, this could be, someone from TIBCO, right? It's part of our documentation, part of our training. We already have people from our product team putting that stuff up there. Now, partners do have the option to deploy these from open source, and really, I think what we're seeing is sort of like partners use that give them something free first, and then charge them for the upgrade, right? So now partners can deploy these out, to get paid if it's a paid model, and you do have to go through our partner verification service, right, and a partner verification process, right? And that's also true if you're submitting a Scribe connector for deployment. So there's some good information here. There's the guide for the marketplace as well as the documentation. And then once you make something public, if you're a producer, then you need to go through and read our license agreement and such. So how are these supported, right? Well, the way they're supported is we're going to provide a first level service on this, and we're going to determine if it's something with our platform or some other issue or something like that. All right. If we determine that it's not TIBCO is not responsible for whatever issue you're having, all right, then we're going to put you in touch with a partner who provided for you. Now, again, the difference between connectors, which are the interfaces to the actual endpoints, and apps is probably applicable here, because the connector is something that you're really not going to change. You really can't change. Once that connector is up there, all right, and it's deployed, the code is deployed to your organization either via Scribe or via Flogo, and there's no real way for you to change that. However, with apps, what the app does is the app deploys a copy for you to your organization, and you're probably almost immediately going to go in and make some changes to that, right? So it is important to understand that once you've changed that app, now it's just like a Git checkout, right? You've checked it out. Now you're going to potentially deviate from the actual original version. So the way that upgrades work is, or just make for upgrades for connectors and Scribe will happen automatically behind the scenes. And for Flogo, you're going to need to deploy to re-get those extensions, and the new apps that are written and compiled will use that new extension. But for apps, it's really just about you just get a current snapshot copy of the way it is. Key thing though is, the balancing is if it's an app, chances are, you might be able to figure it yourself. You can go in and change the code. If it's a connector and there's a bug in that, we'll walk through our support team with you, try to determine if that's the case. And then if it's the provider who's the root cause of that, then we'll send you back to there. All right. Let's kind of walk through and check it out and see how it looks. And get over to TCI. And you can see documentation page is really good in terms of all the different options that you have. And let me get back to TCI Connect. Give me a second. Must have logged out. Sorry, 1 second here. Oh, okay. Okay, we're heading over to TIBCO Cloud Integration right now. And let's go over the marketplace. All right, so the filters are going to be your friends over here. Okay, so you can see where we have all of the different types of from our different capabilities here and the different asset types, right? So if we go to the connectors, we can see, and let's go through and look at the connectors here. So for Scribe, all right. So we see, so I had these set up for paid. Let's look for all of them. And then we can see now these are all the connectors that are available right now for Scribe, right? We can see a lot of the standard ones for Marketo and Google Analytics and such. And then there's the other ones which are paid. And when you go over here, then you can do a request on this, and this will go through the approval process of the managing partner for CVET in this case, right? And that's true for all of these, okay? And then for the applications, all right, so these are the samples, anything that's sample. So these samples is the that goes along with the documentation. So when I go and get this, it's going to deploy this. It's going to deploy this for my organization. And I just do a quick get here like this, and I'm good to go, right? It's going to deploy it now to my organization. And as we can see here, we have HTTP examples. And these are all the examples that support the documentation. All right, great stuff. Now, when we head over to other applications, we can see that, for instance, one of our partners called Customer Sync, they have this error history report. What does this do? Well, it provides a sample exporting for apps, and then you can see that there's additional information over here. So everything is going to include a link to the actual documentation where it's held, right? And then same thing for develop here. These are the applications. So these are all the different applications that I have for my particular Flogo apps, right? And these will be deployed. These are array operations, and again, all these are ways to handle. These are examples, and I think for Flogo especially, this is useful because some of these. With Scribe, the documentation, you can kind of muddy your way through, but with Flogo, some of the array operations, Flogo is very based, Flogo is called develop, but it's really built with a developer mindset. So you absolutely want to go through and look through these, especially the array operations. It takes a little time to understand how the array operations work within Flogo. So I very much suggest checking out the sample apps applications within Flogo. All right. And then for the Connect apps here, we can see that here's all the ones that are available. And this one right here is actually, here's the case that I was talking about where here's the base version, and this one adds email to that. So once you've installed this and sort of gotten a taste of what it does, you can head over, and this one of our partners, this Customer Sync partner, will help you, to install it and upgrade it to include emails. And this is a great little application here because what it does is it leverages the power of our platform API. And again, our partners are aware of these great things we can do with, with TCI. Internally we're aware. Right now, this is a way to make everyone else aware of all the different ways you can work things together. All right. So, for instance, like I said, the platform API, the variables connector, HTTP, all these different examples. Now you can see the building blocks and understand how to pull it all together. All right. And then for yeah, so the other one here, this one is another one of our partners, and what they're doing is they're providing a way to copy data from one Salesforce organization to another. All right, and this is all. So that's what it looks like to get what this one looks like here. Kind of would open it up and show you some of the all right. So this will move the objects between Salesforce. All right. What I like about this one is that it has some built-in documentation here, and what they've done is the inline documentation. Each one of these they've put through and they put in the documentation directly into the map. This is a good little trick you can use here, is by putting these comment blocks. Basically, coding 101, right? A bunch of comment blocks, and now you can see how all this works. It's going to go through and it's going to it's going to query from one Salesforce system and then push it to another. All right. All right. So any questions about that? I know, yeah, so I want to be sure that you understand like the different deployment models, different ways you can get it. And also the fact that there's these, I think the key thing is these three deployment models. There's the public, the request, and the private, and the documentation here is great too. So if you head over to this, the documentation really lays out for you everything, it is all the different ways you can do it, right? So you can create one, you can, and you don't need to go through the approval process either. You can do a org to org private deployment from one organization to another without having to go through our approval process. And again, that's another great way, because the apps, they're just applications. They're not necessarily part of the core infrastructure of extensions or connections. Therefore, it's you don't need to go through the approval process. I can just deploy these from one organization to another as an end user to an end user. All right. And then if you are one of our partners, you do want to go through the process here, you can see we have our guide of how to publish and get everything up in the marketplace for people who are partners who are going to be putting these out for for paid or for an open source model to drive engagement and drive business to their particular organizations. All right. So a lot of great stuff here. Hope everyone has a chance to play around with this. I really do suggest you go in, you head over to the marketplace, you try out a bunch of the examples. I mean, the Flogo apps here, the Flogo apps especially, I mean, these are really going to help you to understand a lot of the complexities of how to use Flogo, for the looping, because Flogo is a very array looping based type of programming methodology, right? And this is really going to help you understand that. And then using the ones for Connect is also going to help you to understand all of the different applications you can use. All right, everyone, thank you for attending, and we'll make this recording available. If you have any questions, please let us know, and we'll see you next month.